In recent developments in the ongoing global trade disputes, President Donald Trump has once again taken a bold and polarizing stance by threatening to impose a 200% tariff on European alcohol imports, including wine, champagne, and cognac, if certain new tariffs go unremoved. This latest move comes after the European Union had levied a 50% tariff on whiskey, a decision that the White House considers nasty and unfair, especially when paired with tariffs on U.S. steel and aluminum. The threat of a 200% tariff, a figure that might make even the most seasoned trader break into a nervous sweat, is not merely a spur-of-the-moment decision, but a calculated strategy intended to change what the U.S. claims are unfair tax policies imposed by its European counterparts. With the EU in line for a potentially significant blow, European wine producers, particularly those in France, Italy, and Spain, face the possibility of having their market share in the United States decline rapidly if American consumers start turning to domestic alternatives due to soaring prices. In 2023, the EU exported about $13.1 billion USD worth of alcoholic beverages to the U.S., with French wine standing out as the flagship export. And a 200% tariff could double the cost of these beloved beverages, sending shockwaves through both industries and consumers alike. While some may chuckle and remark that an extra 200% tariff might be the best way to hide a bad vintage, the reality is that this move, if executed, could reshape the trade landscape between the United States and the European Union irreversibly. The measure is viewed by many experts as a hard blow to the EU's wine industry, one that could potentially force countries to either absorb steep price increases or lose market access entirely in what is rapidly becoming one of the highest stakes trade wars in recent memory. European officials, however, have not taken this threat lightly. Senior EU representatives have firmly stated that Europe will not allow its wine industry to be bullied into submission and that it is fully prepared to protect its national interests, arguing that the 200% tariff on wine and champagne will only serve to damage the long-standing trade relationship between the two economic powerhouses. This clash of titans has left many in the wine industry wondering whether their bottles of fine champagne and celebrated French vintages might soon be relegated to mere bargaining chips in a global economic poker game. As we follow these dramatic developments, the dispute takes on additional layers with the disclosure of comments from both sides that reveal an escalating spiral of retaliatory measures. While President Trump's assertion that, if this tariff is not removed immediately, the U.S. will shortly place a 200% tariff on all wines, champagnes, and alcoholic products may sound like a line out of a suspense thriller, it is, in fact, a serious economic threat that could reverberate down to local vineyards and star-studded wine auctions. Moreover, there is an emerging irony within the narrative, as trade policies shake hands with economic stability, that even the most stalwart industry figures have begun to joke about whether these tariffs might serve as an unintended vintage for domestic wine production in the U.S. And before you think this is just high-stakes politics with no room for a little levity, let me just add a note. If you're finding our in-depth analysis as engaging as a fine-aged Bordeaux, do consider subscribing to our channel and dropping a like or comment. Your engagement helps us dive even deeper into these fascinating economic battles, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on whether these tariffs could really singe the taste of European elegance in American glasses. Beyond the wine dispute, another front in this multifaceted trade war has emerged between the United States and Canada. The conflict escalated as the U.S. and Canadian governments exchanged tariffs in what some have described as an economic chess match with devastating consequences on both sides. Following the announcement of the potential 200% tariff on European alcohol imports, tensions in North America were further inflamed when the U.S., under Trump's directive, imposed a 25% tariff on Canadian goods. This set off a rapid response from Canada, with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government retaliating by declaring a series of countermeasures that include tariffs on nearly $30 billion worth of U.S. imports, targeting industries such as steel, aluminum, computers, sports equipment, and cast iron products. The so-called U.S.-Canada trade war has seen a dramatic increase in economic hostilities that have contributed to falling stock markets, skyrocketing fuel and grocery prices, and an environment of uncertainty for businesses across multiple sectors. At the heart of these disputes is a fundamental question regarding the balance of trade between nations that have long maintained robust economic relationships. The U.S. and Canada, for instance, have historically been each other's largest trading partners, with a staggering two-way trade volume exceeding $725 billion annually. However, recent actions suggest that both sides of the border are increasingly prepared to use tariffs as a weapon in a broader strategy of economic coercion. The Canadian government's move to impose a 25% retaliatory tariff on $29.8 billion worth of U.S. imports is a clear demonstration that Canada is not willing to let what it perceives as unfair policies go unchallenged. Moreover, Canadian officials have taken further measures by striking back in industries most affected by these tariffs. The targets include industries that are critical to the U.S. economy and affect everyday consumers, from construction materials to consumer electronics, further amplifying the potential for disruption in the U.S. market. The scenario becomes even more intricate when considering the impact on specific sectors, such as the automobile industry and agriculture. For example, American auto manufacturers are on high alert, as 75% of auto parts produced in Canada are exported to the U.S., and any breakdown in this supply chain could result in significant operational challenges. The agricultural sector is similarly vulnerable, with American farmers suddenly facing the prospect of losing market share in Canada as tariffs threaten to raise the cost of American produce. Former U.S. Ambassador to Canada, James Blanchard, has warned in stark terms that these trade measures portend severe damage to the economic relationship between the two nations, describing the situation as the worst point in modern history for U.S.-Canada relations. Meanwhile, some on the political left and right have speculated that President Trump might be using these trade tensions as a tool to rally voters ahead of an election, a suggestion that has sparked both amusement and concern among political analysts. I know it almost sounds like a script for a dramatic reality TV show, only the stakes are real jobs, soaring prices, and the stability of entire national economies. It is also worth noting that this trade dispute is not contained by the borders of North America alone. President Trump's expansive tariff strategy, which now covers not only European wines and Canadian goods, but also steel, aluminum, automobiles, and agricultural products, hints at a broader unwillingness to compromise on trade issues. The narrative has shifted from what might have been a localized economic quarrel to what is increasingly being regarded as a full-blown economic showdown, one in which every sector from energy to consumer electronics is potentially vulnerable. According to one estimate, some U.S. economic experts warn that if these trade tensions are not diffused in time, U.S. GDP could suffer a reduction of 0.7 to 1% within just 12 months. For those who enjoy a bit of irony, this might be the first time in modern history when American consumers will not only pay more for their favorite bottle of Bordeaux, but also for the very building blocks of American industry. Furthermore, the economic ripples from these tariff wars have reached far beyond the boardrooms of multinational corporations. Household budgets are starting to feel the pinch. American stock markets have reacted negatively to these developments, with indices like the S&P 500 experiencing significant drops, sometimes as drastic as 1.7% in a single day, reflecting a palpable investor unease about the future. Gas prices and grocery bills are expected to soar, and inflation fears are mounting as the cost of everyday goods climbs higher. In such a scenario, millions of American households might soon find that the price of a leisurely bottle of wine, once a symbol of celebration and conviviality, now carries the bitter aftertaste of economic strife. For those who can't help but wonder whether the trade war could someday compel even the most stalwart economists to swap their spreadsheets for safety nets, the answer remains shrouded in uncertainty. And if you're curious to know more, make sure to subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. Let us know your views on how far this economic chess game might go. Your thoughts might just add an interesting twist to our next analysis. Yet the complexities do not end there. Adding another dimension to this economic storm is Canada's strategic reorientation in response to the persistent pressures from U.S. trade policies. In reaction to what many view as an overreach by the Trump administration, especially its insistence on imposing tariffs on critical industries, Canada has not only engaged in immediate retaliatory measures, but has also begun forging stronger trade ties with other global partners, notably in Europe and Asia. The European Union, for its part, has signaled its readiness to protect its wine industry and other sectors from unfair trade practices that threaten the long-standing area's economic interests. With premium brands like Champagne at risk of losing competitive edge due to potential 200% tariffs, French wine producers have already started voicing their concerns about the probable erosion of market share in the U.S. The repercussions of such actions promise to extend well beyond the confines of boardrooms and political debates, impacting the livelihood of vineyard workers and small business owners throughout Europe. A notable twist in this elaborate saga is the nuanced use of energy as a strategic tool. Canada, traditionally reliant on its energy exports, has begun leveraging its oil, gas, and electricity not just as commodities, but as instruments of geopolitical influence. In 2023, over 50% of the U.S.'s imported oil came from Canada, a figure that underscores the significant dependence of American industries on Canadian resources. But now, with merited retaliatory tariffs and with ambitious plans such as the newly expanded Trans Mountain pipeline system, Canada is positioning itself to export oil to Asian markets at a potentially higher value, reducing its traditional reliance on U.S. demand. This shifting dynamic carries the potential to unsettle not only the American energy sector, but could also lead to longer-term instabilities in energy supply for the United States. It brings to mind a wry observation. Perhaps in the future, discussions about tariffs won't just involve wine and steel, but could extend to questions like, would you prefer your gasoline imported with a side of maple syrup? Spoiler alert. Irony aside, even the energy sector is not immune to the turbulence of tit-for-tat economic measures. In parallel, domestic political narratives are becoming intertwined with these international economic disputes. Both sides are leveraging the trade conflict to galvanize public support. Yet the underlying economic consequences risk being felt most acutely by everyday citizens. In the United States, a collective sense of apprehension has emerged among businesses and workers, especially those in sectors directly affected by the tariffs. American manufacturers, particularly those in the automotive and agricultural sectors, face the daunting prospect of rising production costs and disrupted supply chains. American workers in industries such as steel and aluminum, and even in sectors seemingly peripheral like retail, could see their livelihoods jeopardized as increased operational costs are passed on to consumers. This precarious economic balancing act raises pressing questions about the long-term implications of pursuing aggressive trade policies in a globalized world. As the situation unfolds, consumers are left wondering whether this strategic show of economic might eventually backfire, leading to severe inflationary pressures and widespread economic instability. Even amidst these swirling tensions, there have been a few moments where a dash of humor has emerged naturally amid the rhetoric of towering tariffs. For instance, President Trump's odd quip on social media, where he referred to condemning Governor Trudeau while threatening even greater tariffs if Canada retaliated, has spurred both laughter and disbelief on various social media platforms. Some commentators have compared his style to that of a high-stakes poker player, bluffing his way through tense negotiations, while others have dryly noted that if economic disputes were an Olympic sport, this might very well be the decathlon of diplomacy, albeit one where the penalties are measured in billions of dollars rather than medals. It's an ironic reminder that sometimes, even in the midst of economic chaos, a well-placed joke can cut through the tension and bring a human element to otherwise dry policy debates. Amid these high-tension developments, another critical element to consider is the effect on U.S. domestic politics and consumer sentiment. Recent statements by economic experts have suggested that the current trajectory of tariff escalations might be pushing the U.S. economy toward a significant slowdown. With one analysis predicting a downturn in U.S. GDP by up to 1% within a year, alongside a further 10 to 15% increase in costs for consumer goods ranging from cars to household electronics, the stakes are enormously high. Moreover, a renewed focus on trade balance issues has highlighted the paradox that while the U.S. continues to produce a trade surplus with Canada in certain manufacturing sectors, it faces deficits in areas such as energy. Such imbalances challenge the very foundation of America's Make America Great Again narrative, prompting critics and allies alike to question whether these aggressive tariff measures are a force for progress or a precursor to economic decline. And for a moment, pause and consider. What do you think? Are these tariffs a masterstroke of pressure, or a recipe for domestic economic discomfort? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and join the discussion. At the same time, on the international stage, Canada is actively using its newfound leverage to reshape both regional and global economic relationships. In response to U.S. tariffs and aggressive trade posturing, Canada has embarked on an ambitious initiative to diversify its trading partners. With a comprehensive economic and trade agreement, CETA, easing the pathway for Canadian products into the European market, Canadian businesses have reported a 7% boost in trade with the EU since the agreement took effect. Moreover, Asian markets such as Japan and South Korea have increasingly turned to Canadian oil and natural gas as alternative sources, thereby reducing their historical reliance on Middle Eastern energy supplies. This strategic pivot not only enhances Canada's geopolitical clout, but also mitigates the risks associated with overdependence on a single trading partner. It is a clear indicator that while the share of trade with the United States remains sizable, Canada is determined to secure its economic future by establishing a more balanced and diversified export portfolio. The role of tariffs in precipitating such sweeping changes in national economic strategies underscores an uncomfortable truth about modern global trade. Political maneuvers on one continent can send tremors across the world, affecting everything from the price of wine to the reliability of energy supplies. This interconnectedness means that a policy shift in Washington, D.C. has repercussions that ripple far beyond its borders. For European wine producers, rising U.S. tariffs threaten to decimate a vital export market, potentially leading to a significant decline in revenue and a hurried reorientation toward alternative markets. For American auto manufacturers, disrupted supply chains and higher production costs pose existential challenges that could ultimately lead to job losses and diminished competitive advantage in a global marketplace. And for Canadians, the escalating trade war has spurred a surge in nationalism and a decisive commitment to protecting domestic industries, a response that has, in turn, shifted the very political landscape within the country. In a climate where economic decisions are interlaced with political posturing and national pride, the stakes have never been higher. The current trade wars, both with Europe and North America, have evolved into an intricate web of retaliatory measures, strategic repositioning, and economic brinkmanship. Critical sectors of the economy, including energy, automotive, agriculture, and consumer goods, are now at risk, forcing policymakers to navigate an increasingly turbulent environment where each move has potential long-term ramifications. It is a scenario rife with uncertainty and volatility, a high-wire act in which missteps could lead to dire consequences for both nations involved. As we continue to monitor these developments, it remains imperative to question whether such aggressive tactics will ultimately yield the desired diplomatic leverage or simply provoke further instability in an already precarious global economic framework. One cannot help but notice the irony inherent in these unfolding events. Here we have a global economic leader threatening to add double the cost on cherished European exports, while simultaneously engaging in a tit-for-tat war with Canada, a nation known for its politeness and friendly demeanor. It is almost as if the facade of cordiality is being stripped away to reveal a gritty underbelly of economic rivalries, where even the most benign of commodities, like a fine bottle of wine or a gallon of gasoline, is transformed into a symbol of political power. In a way, this points to a broader reality that in today's interconnected world, national pride and economic policy frequently go hand in hand, often in ways that are as dramatic as they are consequential. And heck, if you think that sounds like a convoluted script for a dinner party debate, just wait. This is the real deal, unfolding at a pace that would leave even the most patient observer a little dizzy. Remember to hit that subscribe button and share your insights in the comments if you're as fascinated by this economic drama as we are. Looking ahead, the future remains uncertain as trade tensions continue to mount with no clear resolution in sight. The strategic standoff between the U.S. and Europe, compounded by the high-stakes contest between the U.S. and Canada, represents a defining moment in global trade relations, one that could reshape the economic landscape for generations to come. The ongoing cycle of multidimensional retaliatory measures, each bearing the potential to impact domestic economies significantly, is not merely a political skirmish, but a full-scale confrontation with far-reaching consequences. As both the U.S. and its trading partners brace for what might come next, the real question that looms large is whether such policies will ultimately serve as effective catalysts for change or become a self-perpetuating cycle of economic self-destruction. In closing, as these narratives continue to collide, from the vineyards of France and Italy to the manufacturing plants and energy pipelines of North America, the pressing issues at hand demand careful analysis and measured responses from all parties involved. The intersection of economic interests, national pride, and political strategy in this trade war offers a vivid illustration of how interconnected and fragile global markets can be. Each decision made in boardrooms and government halls now carries monumental implications for consumers, workers, and industries across the world. Is the current strategy of imposing harsh tariffs a masterstroke in leveraging economic power? Or is it a miscalculated risk destined to spiral into a debilitating crisis that touches every corner of society? It is a question that invites robust discussion. What do you think? Will these aggressive trade actions ultimately secure long-term gains for domestic industries, or are they setting the stage for widespread economic disruption? We encourage you to add your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below and join us in this indispensable dialogue. It is clear that as the United States and Canada continue this high-stakes tug-of-war over tariffs, marked by figures such as the 25% tariff imposed on Canadian goods and retaliatory measures affecting nearly $30 billion in U.S. imports, the resulting economic shockwaves are poised to touch every aspect of daily life. With North American trade volumes exceeding billions of dollars each day, even minor policy shifts could have outsized impacts on industries as varied as auto manufacturing, agriculture, construction, and energy. The dramatic shifts witnessed in consumer prices for goods like gasoline, automobiles, and fresh produce serve as stark reminders that what may start as a diplomatic dispute can quickly escalate into an all-encompassing economic crisis affecting millions of livelihoods. The ripple effects of these actions underscore the importance of measured, well-considered policymaking in an era where the global economy is as intertwined as ever. These turbulent economic times have also placed pressure on politicians and policymakers to re-examine long-standing trade agreements and national strategies. While President Trump's tariffs and subsequent threats have incited immediate financial shock and widespread uncertainty, Canada's swift and calculated retaliatory measures have demonstrated that a nation can, in fact, leverage economic adversity as an opportunity to redefine its future on the international stage. From bolstering internal industries to diversifying trade relationships with the EU, Asia, and beyond, Canada is actively charting a course toward greater independence and resilience. This appetite for self-reliance stands in stark contrast to the more aggressive, confrontational approach taken by the current U.S. administration. In an era where economic policy increasingly serves as a proxy for national identity and sovereignty, the battle lines are drawn not merely in dollars and tariffs, but in a broader struggle for geopolitical significance. Of course, amidst the sober realities of economic disruption and international tension, a wry observer might note the inherent humor in the situation. After all, it's not every day that tariffs on champagne and wine become headline news, prompting economists to compare the unfolding drama to a soap opera in which even the most coveted luxury goods are not immune to political crossfire. One might even jest that if the U.S. were to impose a 200% tariff on every celebratory bottle, special occasions could soon become a matter of economizing on the bubbly. A thought that, while absurd, highlights just how far-reaching these trade policies have become. It is this blend of dramatic tension and occasional ironic humor that encapsulates the current state of affairs, reminding us that in the realm of international trade, even the most refined products can devolve into bargaining chips in a game of economic brinkmanship. In summary, the intricate web of retaliatory measures, sweeping trade policies, and corresponding shifts in international alliances underscores the monumental stakes involved in the ongoing disputes between the U.S., the EU, and Canada. Whether it is the threat of a 200% tariff on European wines and champagnes designed to force policy changes, or the layered and complex counterattacks emerging from North American neighbors, the global economic order is being reshaped in real time. The multifaceted nature of these conflicts, marked by bold statements from leaders such as President Donald Trump and determined responses from figures like Prime Minister Justin Trudeau suggest that the repercussions will be felt across industries and affect millions of lives, from vineyard owners in Europe to factory workers in the US and energy experts in Canada. As we stand at this critical juncture, the coming months are set to reveal whether these aggressive trade tactics will ultimately secure national advantages or precipitate a broader economic downturn that spans continents. With every new tariff announcement, every retaliatory measure, and every subsequent market reaction, the intricate dance of global trade enters a new, uncertain phase. While the economic fallout could be severe, with forecasts hinting at reduced U.S. GDP, increased consumer prices, and potentially significant job losses, the underlying question remains: are these dramatic economic maneuvers an indispensable tool in a world of fierce competition, or are they a perilous gamble that threatens to undermine the very foundations of international cooperation? As always, your perspective is invaluable. Please subscribe for more expert analyses, leave a like if you appreciate our balanced coverage, and share your thoughts on these trade disputes in the comments below. How do you think these aggressive tariffs will reshape the global economic landscape? And what measures, if any, do you believe can salvage the fragile equilibrium between trade partners? In this era of unprecedented economic turbulence, where tariffs are weaponized and the global balance of power is continuously redrawn, one thing remains clear: the decisions made by today's leaders will have lasting effects on the economic fortunes of tomorrow's generations. Whether this new phase of the trade war leads to innovation and strategic realignments or becomes a cautionary tale of unbridled protectionism is a question that only time will answer. Meanwhile, as the world waits with bated breath for the next move in this high-stakes game, all eyes remain fixed on the evolving narratives of trade, diplomacy, and economic resilience, a tale that is as complex as it is compelling, full of both dramatic tension and the occasional ironic twist that reminds us that even in the wryest moments of economic strife, humanity finds a way to laugh. Stay tuned as we continue to bring you the latest insights and in-depth analysis on this unfolding saga. Remember to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and engage with us by leaving your thoughts below. The road ahead is uncertain, the challenges are immense, and yet, in the midst of this palpable tension, the debate remains open. Will these tactics ultimately lead to a more balanced global trade system, or are we witnessing the unraveling of decades-old economic alliances? Only time will tell, but one thing remains certain: the world is watching, and this economic drama is far from over.